Shall we go to the bad? Hawker?
Yeah, sure.
Time for the bad?
Let's do it.
Yeah, okay. This, I think we're gonna like hijack the show here and accidentally turn it into a hot take point made for a little bit because we're going back to the G2 moves. Okay, we're going back to the G2 moves. I know you think this topic has been beaten to death, but I don't know if I'm a full Snax defender, but I don't.
Oh, by the
think
way,
this
I
move is
saw
that
the
bad.
tweet. If you don't know,
Mate,
he actually
yeah.
tweeted something like that. Like it's actually a good move to bring Snax in. So I'm very interested where we're going on this one, Hawker.
No, okay. First of all, I do think the Morbs move is worse because reportedly, I think there was a report that they spent like 500k on him.
It was something expensive, yeah, sure.
Which is just crazy because just opportunity cost tells you that money needs to go on an anchor, an in-game leader, something else, instead of bringing this inexperienced guy who I know he's been good recently, but he's not even like
he doesn't have much
that
experience.
much time.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, exactly. And I have seen him be inconsistent in the past. So listen, I don't want to bag on Morbs too much because I think that move, everyone hates that move where you bring him in and you probably change his roles and it probably goes badly. But I also think the Snax thing is overblown.
Come on.
And here's why. Okay, firstly, okay, in the past, I was a bit of a Hooksy defender, saying I don't think there's anyone you can get.
At least he's
better.
doing this disclaimer at the beginning.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So, I feel like you're already going to discount me.
You probably prefer Sprite over Coke as well, don't you? Fuck, come on, keep going.
Dr. Pepper, actually.
There you go. That's more on brand. Okay.
Like a unique
Dr. Pepper is very much the Hooksy of drinks. It's true. Okay.
Okay, first thing I think that changed it all is I do think after Dallas, I think that's when Hooksy was just dead in the water. I'm not going to lie. I think the team just lost faith fully. At that point, they're just looking around and saying to themselves, okay, we don't understand what this guy is doing. And then at that point, if you are going to bring in an in-game leader, I don't think Snax is this terrible in-game leader that everyone seems to claim he is. Because I think for this move to be bad, you have to think he's a terrible in-game leader. Because he's obviously a better fragger than Hooksy, okay? We could all say that. And he will do a decent job in some of those roles. I think he'll be fine. Even though he's having to adapt his roles, I think he'll be fine in changing his roles. And when I look at Gamer Legion, okay, I don't think this team had some crazy amount of talent on it. I think this team was doing about as well as they should have been with the players they had. And they had a bunch of inexperienced players, which is why I think Snax's default style looks especially bad, because I don't think that Gamer Legion team had really anyone who was going to say, okay, I want to do this. I want to do that. Let's go for this. Let's go for that. Whereas G2 is the opposite team. I think if anything, they have too many of those players, which is why I don't want a micromanagey IGL, which is why I think Alexi kind of failed on this team because it was he wanted it to be way more structured than it ended up being. So I think in that loose system, I think it can actually work. The other thing I will say on Gamer Legion, I know their T-side stats have been very, very bad, but their map pool was basically a bunch of overpass they were playing, which is already going to just be hard on T-side. And they didn't play Anubis, which is a T-sided map, which I think makes those stats look extra bad. So I'm not saying Snax is like some great in-game leader, okay? I'm not going that far, but I just think it's a bit overblown to say he's completely terrible. And I think, okay, the thing I really wanted is if you bring in Snax and you bring in a good anchor player, suddenly I actually think this team would be such a monster CT side team that I actually think their T side wouldn't even have to be that good anyway. But then you bring in Morbs, so I can't really commit to that 100% because I think he is going to get screwed. But that's my case for I don't think this is anywhere near as bad as everyone's making out.
Let me do a follow-up.
And the other thing...
Oh, go make your real point.
Just quickly, I really didn't want Nico to IGL yet. I really didn't want that. And if this goes wrong, next season or whatever, just switch Snax out and try and get a way better in-game leader. That's the other take.
I need to ask the follow-up Kassad question, though, and it goes like this. Are you saying, based on the bullshit at the end where you used the Malbs thing to, temper the take, are you saying if this move had been Nexus stays, but it's a 1-for-1 Snax for Hooksy, it would be better with that lineup than when they had Hooksy?
Oh. I think similar, but potential to be better. I think.
Okay.
But,
I think we know where you're at.
Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts, Maui?
Okay, so yes, there's a lot to break down here. Their T side was the worst of everybody in tier 1, okay? They were the worst in everybody that's a tier top 30 above. They have the worst T side. You are right that they played a lot of overpass, so that can give them a little bit of a break. But even then, if you take away overpass, Their T side is worse. Their T side is like it's still the worst if you take away Overpass from 2024 for pretty much every team. I think they maybe then beat out like a Game in Gladiators or an Ecstatic at that point.
But to be fair, that's because their T side and Overpass was actually pretty good, by the way.
Yeah, their T side on Overpass was like that was like a weird highlight for them. But then it's like, okay, so can he only call on one map? So he could only call on he could only call on Overpass, and it's not in the pool anymore. So the one saving grace for this whole argument is that, yeah, they play a lot of Overpass, which isn't in the pool. It's like they nerfed my boy Norbert by taking out Overpass of the pool. I'm not really making any excuses for him anymore because he doesn't really have that specialty status anymore. And that's what Snax was. He was a specialty on Overpass. They were very good at it. They had a 78% win rate throughout 2024. Every other map was 60% or beneath, and they're not playing good opposition. They're not winning a lot of... Like, okay, here's, for example, Nuke. Okay, Nuke. 2024 Nuke, 38% round win percentage on T side. That's terrible. That's the worst of any team. That's the worst of any team. And they're playing teams like Gun 5, Mao's NXT, Forza, Mao's NXT, Nine Pandas, like they're playing horrible teams, and they don't even have a 40% win rate on that map T side. He's not a great... The stats there is a delta that probably like should be adjusted based off of expected win rate for the maps that they're playing, but the maps that they even should be doing better on T side, they're not doing better on. And so I can't, and the thing is that he doesn't necessarily have like great pieces, but the delta between even their CT side and T side is also the second. It's tied for the largest of any top 30 team this season. The only other team that had a similar disparity between CT and T side was Liquid, and they were both the win rate on CT side for Gamer Legion 52.3%. Like if you have that kind of win rate on CT side, you should be able to put something together on their T side. But they had the worst in all of top 30 teams. So there's a huge like difference between what they're getting out of Snax's supposed calling on that T side and what their players are able to provide on a sometimes debatably more individually focused CT side. So I don't know. I'll just go outright. He was a bad in-game leader. He was a very bad in-game leader. He was good and competent at Overpass. And the thing is that even if you want to go a step further here, one of the reasons they were good at Overpass is because Gamer Legion was good on Overpass with Shuhei also. And so one of the reasons that they were that good is because they had the coach behind them. They had Ash behind him. Ash's whole breakdown on YouTube that he makes to try to sell himself as a good coach is, here's my game plan for Overpass. This is how we played it, which was to the game plan that I helped create. So if anything, Snax had some gold, which was left behind by Shuhei, that Ash still had in a bottle that he was able to give him. And then Snax on every other map, when left to his own devices, had the worst T side in all of Tier 1 Counter-Strike. So I do think he's a very bad in-game leader. I think the role overlap is still very bad. I still stand by the decision that this is very bad. And I think that, this kind of goes back to the whole idea of like, if we transpose the logic of that we use every time we watch a game of Counter-Strike, that you're supposed to make the highest percentage play possible. You're trying to make a play, and sometimes you go results-oriented, where it's like, well, I guess he hit the shot. That's crazy. That's cool. If it's like, the thing is that G2 can still, the fucked up thing about this whole situation is that G2 can honestly still win a tournament because they have m0NESY and Nico, and now they even have Mobs for more firepower, and Hunter, who kind of has varying levels of form. And if Snax wins a tournament like that, it's going to look stupid, but in terms of results-oriented thinking, or like in terms of just trying to use some sort of probability-based logic behind this move, it's catastrophically bad. It's just flat out, look at all the numbers breakdown, all the positions, everything we've ever thought about roster building is completely out the window with this move. And really the only things that are kind of holding this move together in terms of ideas is that he's a slightly better fragger than HooXi, but he's playing much better positions than HooXi, and that he's also Taz's friend, so he's going to have some chemistry built in right there. But that's chemistry from 9 years ago. So I don't really even hold that. I don't really care about chemistry you had with somebody 8 years ago that badly.
My problem with this one is, like, first of all, fair play to Hawker. I will say, I actually noticed, even though when I designed the concept for Hot Take Point Made, the reason it was never going to be a show with guests is, it's almost a poison chalice to ask someone to be on the show, isn't it? Like, unless people get the premise, and spoiler, they never will. Like, they'll always take Maui's hot take from that show and act like he just, like, called a press conference and said, like, Big is the 5th best team of all time. Like, they always act like that, even though it's a fucking show where you intentionally do hot takes. But the joke is, cause, like, once people can get their head around the concept, people know it's just fun, that you sort of intentionally, you're incentivized to make it as crazy a hot take as possible. The joke is, it's actually a show where behind the scenes, some people have sort of been like, can I come on that show? Because like, they just want to do a cameo, a one-off episode, they can get their fucking crazy. And also, I'm pretty sure everyone who just gets this persona just wants Kassad to tell you you're insane and that you take makes no sense, right? That almost goes hand in hand with it, doesn't it, at this point in time? So there's that, you know. So the problem I have is somehow you have actually done what would be a hot take on that show, because what you've basically done is you've actually managed the craziest contrarian position I've ever seen, which is we just won. We just broke everyone, Hawker. Somehow, shitty little Stewie 2K coming back with his bad attitude and big ego and being carried to a championship broke everyone in the whole world. And they not only were like, yeah, actually, maybe we don't need Huxley, even when they'd been arguing with him for 10 months. And then on top of that, half of the people were like, and actually, yeah, maybe Nico should gel. And you were like, fucking hell, it's like we just gave the whole scene like LSD or something. They've changed. They've had like 10 years of psychotherapy in one night and changed as a person. So somehow, out of all that, Hawker has actually managed to craft the contrarian take like, actually, this is a good move though. Because the one take we all had was, in a way, like we all met in the middle, didn't we? They all agreed Huxley should go and they did need to make this change and remove Nexus. But then everyone was like, but at the same time though, obviously Snax isn't as good as Huxley. And then you were like, I agree Huxley should be removed, but also that Snax is better. So you're the only person in the world who believes that. There's you, Snax, and maybe, and I'm saying maybe Taz. When I say maybe Taz, let me have my truth serum and a lie detector. I think I could break him. That's all I'm saying.
I thought you were going to say maybe Snax's mum.
I mean, listen, I have no idea. Listen, I know better which areas not to tread in to cause trouble. So I have no comments whatsoever about Snax's Mohawk. That can stay in your domain entirely. I'll just stay over here on my side of the fence where it's nice and safe. No, here's my problem with this move though, is I actually think Hawker's done the thing where he's just looked at all the upside, which is accurate, by the way. He did label out there real things based on Game Legion, how they played, what they did. The problem is, though, I think you're being too generous, and here's why. I think both parts of his game will be worse in G2. So this idea that, like, well, he's a good fragger, though. He's a fragger, though, isn't he? Like, the stupidest thing about the Huxley anglers, the reason I went so hard on G2 for kicking JKS and Hunter being shit compared to CS2 is because I never needed even one frag extra from Huxley when he had that CSGO team. That team had, you could argue, too much fragging. They had all the fragging you could ever need. I've read those numbers out on past episodes, Maui. If you read out the numbers when they won those like Katowice's, their actual team was doing like 1.20 fragging for the whole team on aggregate. Like, these are numbers that you can't even dream of. If you don't know, guys, there are tons of teams of won CS lands with like the whole team having like a 1.07 rating, and it's just your star popped off, and then the IGL and the support, they shit the bed, and you average it out, and it comes to like not that high. So they were already insane for fragging. So I never needed that part. So already, when people are like, but he's bringing fragging, why do I need more fragging, boys? If I've just signed Malbs and I've kicked the two low fraggers, why do I need more fragging? Well, we all know Hunter doesn't play that well at the moment. Nico isn't the top 5 rifler he used to be. So there are questions asked. So one, I don't think actually he's going to be as good a fragger. Like, I'm going to say this right now. My opinion on Snax is this. This is a take you'll appreciate, Maui. He's doing what no modern NBA player ever does. When you get old now as a former NBA star, you don't like let your numbers go down 4 points per game every season, but stay as like a star on a bad team. You just go and ring chase, but you ring chase by being a bench player. You go, fuck my career. You know what? I'm going to give up whatever, like, you know, numbers I could get over my whole career. I'm going to try and win a ring or two. Basically, I'm just going to, can I contribute in any way? The problem I have is, I think in Gamer Legion, he was the guy who used to be an NBA All-Star 10 years ago, and he's on like, you know, the Sacramento Kings or some not top team, and they're letting him still get all the fucking shots he wants, and he's not a 20 point per game, but you know what, he's still getting 16 points per game, and his splits are all right, Maui, and you know what, he can get the odd rebound. The problem is, you couldn't take that player, you'll see where I'm going with this analogy, and then say, put him in one of the best teams, like put him on the Mavs now, and he'll just do all that, and it's like, no, he would do less. He's actually doing that because he has a shit team and he gets to call stuff around himself. So I think the fragging will be worse. And then the idea that the IGL will be better, I think you actually even yourself said the reason I don't think it will be Hawker, which is I actually think the mistake of this team was the other reason I think the JKS lineup was genius is because somehow they got a bunch of players who could all frag, but there wasn't overlap. That was what was so crazy. Monacy didn't overlap with JKS, didn't overlap with Hunter, didn't overlap with Nico. It was and then Huxley obviously was just a pure sacrificial element. All he would do is just run in like an even shitter version of Carrigan, basically. He just completely sacrificed himself because everyone else could frag. In this team, I actually think they have got massive problems. Like, one, I think one of their biggest problems is Hunter isn't very good, but clearly still has a big voice in the team. That's a nightmare right there. And if you notice, he's never on the chopping block to ever get kicked no matter what. He is beyond Nico levels, mate. They were willing to let Nico go. This guy is just going to be in this team forever, apparently. Then two, you've got the factor that, like, yeah, I'll give it to Monacy. He can do whatever he wants. Like, Nico himself, I thought sometimes in the Huxley lineup, sometimes every now and then looked a little bit out of sorts in CS2 as well. Like, maybe he didn't have the quite flavour of when should he be aggressive, when should he listen to this So my problem is I think this team's full of too many cooks. Like, if I look at this team, I feel like between Nico, Snax and Hunter, you have some enormous fucking opinions here. Then you got Monacy, the best player, but then the last player's Malbs, who's stuck in roles he hasn't even done before. Like, again, I'm taking a very cynical route of application here. I think basically all these factors will fail. I think they'll just be in a tough spot. And the saddest one for me is the Malbs one. Like, the Snax one is neither here nor there. I mean, he has to take the job, but I think it's a bad move. So here's the thing. Here's the thing, Hawkeye. If in like 3 or 4 months this team is actually good and they do win, I'll do a tweet about it. I'll reference this episode and I'll say you got it on record. You got in there first, because I have to say, as far as I know, no other person who's like a big name has actually come on board with this move. I think almost everyone's been negative. Dude, even Yanko, who desperately wants to defend any team Nico's in, had to do that thing of sort of like, well, who else could they get though? You know, like. Bro, and by the way, Yanko was a massive Snax fan, so that's sort of telling you right there, even he knows it's not great. Because, by the way, if you think it's just a great move, you don't do that. You go, no, this is a very shrewd move. You know, no one else would have seen this move. It's a genius move from Pekka. Even he didn't do that, mate. So when the defense lawyer is like that, you know, it's like my joke of when you hear maniacs start going in on Spinks, well, then you know Ziwu had a bad game, don't you? You know at that point you had a bad game, so. You know, the defense.
It is one of those where I look around me and I'm like, you know,
am
I the one insane person or is everyone else insane? I'm probably the one.
You could be the visionary.
Person.
You could be the
Let's
visionary.
be real, but you never know sometimes. And also, I am just going to say what I, genuinely think. So I'm not going to lie.
No, fair play.
I do very much think like a couple things. I do think, he deserves at least some credit for how good Gamer Legion's CT side was. Okay, we do need to give that. And also, like you said, the too many cooks thing. Weirdly, I think Snax is like such not he's like basically the least amount of cooking you could get from an IGL, because I think on Gamer Legion he was basically just saying let's all default and do what we want, which is kind of why I think this could weirdly work, because I think he's literally just going to say default every round, which Gamer Legion did a lot, but on Gamer Legion those players don't know how to do that, so they would just go and die, I feel like, and they would just not really come up with anything, whereas I actually feel like weirdly Snax is going to have that ability, and then I trust that some of the other players will also have those mid-round calls. So as long as they don't completely screw up the starts of rounds, I actually weirdly think it can work. Again, I know I'm sounding crazy right now.
Be really careful. Don't laugh unless you want to get in trouble as well. But I, for real, thought he meant Maui. That obviously he just orders takeaways. And that's why he's... Oh, mate, because he was the one who said, like, with Snax, you get the least amount of cooking ever. It's like, yeah, no shit. Yeah. Just saying, bro. I mean, you're not wrong, but, when you're right, Orca. That's all I'm going to say. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.